Welcome to my philosophy channel. The video is a bit long, but if you can stick with it until the end, it might help you see the true nature of the crowd for what it is and stop being a pawn on someone else's chessboard. Why does a person who is highly intelligent and perfectly rational in solitude suddenly commit acts they cannot even comprehend once they merge into a massive crowd? Why do we always believe we are thinking independently when in reality we are merely standing inside an emotional structure built by someone else? When you are alone, you possess the unique capacity for deep reasoning and moral reflection. You weigh consequences, analyze complex variables, and take full responsibility for your individual actions. But when you step into the swelling tide of a moving multitude, a terrifying metamorphosis quietly occurs beneath your conscious awareness. You trade your unique identity for the comforting warmth of the herd. You willingly surrender your precious free will in exchange for the temporary illusion of absolute certainty and unquestionable belonging. This is not merely a sociological phenomenon. It is the ultimate existential crisis of modern human consciousness. Chapter 1. The moment the self begins to dissolve. The transition from an independent individual to a mindless component of a crowd is never driven by stupidity. It is driven by a profound and ancient human fear of absolute isolation. When we stand entirely alone, we must bear the crushing weight of our own decisions and confront the terrifying uncertainty of existence. By merging into a group, we instantly experience a remarkable relief from this existential burden. The French psychologist Gustave Le Bon discovered that this gathering triggers a powerful chemical reaction within the human psyche. It is not a simple addition of people, but the sudden creation of an entirely new psychological entity. Within this newly formed organism, the conscious personality of every single member completely vanishes. A phenomenon known as the law of mental unity takes absolute control over the multitude. The distinct intelligence, unique character, and specialized profession of the individual are instantly erased by the overwhelming power of the collective mind. This metamorphosis requires three specific catalysts to obliterate individual rationality. The first is the intoxicating power of anonymity. When you become a faceless number within a sea of thousands, the invisible reins of personal responsibility mystically disappear. The subconscious mind suddenly realizes that the law cannot punish the unidentified multitude. A mild-mannered office clerk who trembles at minor conflicts can suddenly participate in frightening acts of violence. Under the cloak of complete anonymity, the hidden primal instincts that society carefully restrains are violently unleashed. He does not inherently become evil. He simply ceases to be himself in that specific moment. The independent self evaporates when the comfort of anonymity removes the burden of personal consequence. Chapter 2. Why crowds feel safer than truth. Why do we voluntarily surrender our perception of reality simply because others see things differently? In the 1950s, a famous psychological experiment revealed the terrifying fragility of individual conviction. Participants were asked to identify which of three lines matched: a standard reference line, a task requiring basic visual intelligence. However, when placed in a room full of actors instructed to confidently choose the obvious wrong answer, the results were chilling. Over 30% of the genuine subjects willingly betrayed their own eyes and chose the incorrect line. They later confessed they feared being ostracized or believed the group somehow knew better. This experiment exposes the harsh truth about human nature and our desperate need for collective validation. Truth is often cold, complex, and deeply uncomfortable, while the crowd offers a warm and welcoming illusion of security. We subconsciously calculate that being wrong together is considerably safer than being right entirely alone. When we encounter a dissenting opinion in our modern workplaces, we often choose absolute silence over righteous confrontation. If the authority figure proposes a flawed strategy and every colleague nods in unison, the fear of professional exclusion paralyzes us. We suppress our valid doubts to protect our fragile social standing. We convince ourselves that we are merely avoiding unnecessary conflict when we are actually betraying our own intellect. The desire to blend seamlessly into the background subdues the primal panic of being exiled from the tribe. We hide behind the protective shield of unanimous agreement because standing apart requires unimaginable psychological courage. The illusion of independent thought crumbles when faced with the primal terror of being excluded by the tribe. Chapter 3: How Emotion Replaces Thought. The second catalyst that destroys rationality is the overwhelming force of emotional contagion. Emotions in a crowd function exactly like a highly virulent biological pathogen. A single person projecting intense panic, burning anger, or delirious joy can instantaneously infect hundreds of thousands of minds without engaging a single logical argument. This contagion bypasses the neocortex and strikes directly at the primitive structures of the human brain. Through a process of unconscious physiological imitation, we mirror the heavy breathing and racing heartbeats of those surrounding us. Before we can articulate a reason for our distress, our bodies have already surrendered to the shared frenzy. Consider the devastating power of a carefully orchestrated live stream designed for relentless consumer manipulation. The host shouts frantically about limited inventory while fabricated actors fill the comment section with exaggerated praise. The viewer experiences a massive surge of anxiety and buys extravagant products they do not truly need or desire. During a historic psychological experiment involving a simulated prison environment, normal university students swiftly transformed into cruel interrogators. Protected by uniforms and reflective glasses, the artificial guards fed off each other's escalating aggression. The emotional contagion erased their compassion, proving that situational environments can rapidly rewrite our fundamental moral architecture. Because rationality operates slowly and deliberately, it is utterly defenseless against the lightning speed of primal feeling. The intellect is submerged beneath a raging flood of neurochemicals initiated simply by observing another person's extreme behavior. In this state, we mistake our synchronized heartbeat for a profound feeling of absolute moral clarity. In the heat of a unified gathering, emotion mutates into an unstoppable virus that completely eradicates logic. Chapter 4: The Seduction of Slogans, Leaders, and Certainty. The final and most dangerous mechanism operating within a crowd is a state of profound suggestibility. Submerged in the multitude, the individual enters a hypnotic trance where critical thinking violently collapses. The group mind cannot comprehend nuance, complex philosophy, or intricate logical chains. It solely understands striking and oversimplified visual images. Because a drifting ship trembling with explosive energy instinctively summons a captain, the crowd inevitably attracts manipulative leaders. These figures are rarely deep intellectual thinkers. They are unyielding men of action armed with absolute and fanatical convictions. They conquer the masses using three elementary weapons: assertion, repetition, and emotional contagion. An assertion must be stripped completely bare of any burdensome evidence or complicated rational proof. It must be delivered with the supreme confidence of a divine revelation. When a complex global crisis occurs, a leader need only shout a two-word slogan to satisfy the crowd's desperate hunger for immediate certainty. A single assertion is weak, but a fabricated claim repeated 10,000 times metamorphoses into an indisputable truth. By relentlessly bombarding the subconscious mind from every conceivable angle, the slogan etches itself into the brain's architecture. Eventually, the exhausted intellect surrenders, and the crowd accepts the weaponized lie as the ultimate reality. We witness this phenomenon constantly when identical advertising jingles play continuously across multiple media platforms for decades. Despite lacking any concrete scientific backing, consumers subconsciously choose these products based purely on aggressive and ubiquitous familiarity. We confuse the sensation of recognizing a highly repeated phrase with the discovery of a universal law. A complex truth demands deep contemplation, but a simple slogan demands only blind and enthusiastic obedience. Chapter 5. The crowd in the age of algorithms. We falsely believe that our advanced education emancipates us from the primitive behaviors documented in the 19th century. However, the digital era has not eliminated the crowd. It has perfectly weaponized its underlying psychological mechanics. The modern information architecture functions as an invisible assembly line designed to mass-produce conformity and outrage. Algorithms silently observe every slight hesitation of your thumb and every fleeting dilation of your pupil. They carefully construct an impenetrable echo chamber surrounding your consciousness, feeding you only what validates your pre-existing biases. You falsely assume you are witnessing the entire world, but you are merely staring at a meticulously curated mirror. These systems have given birth to the terrifying phenomenon of the virtual crowd. Millions of strangers can synchronize their collective hatred without ever sharing the same physical geography. Artificial intelligence accounts and automated bots inject fabricated outrage into online communities, instantly inciting real human beings to perform destructive acts of digital violence. When a fabricated rumor claiming milk powder cured fatal diseases swept through unregulated digital forums, chaos instantly ensued. Panicked parents stripped supermarket shelves, based solely on a deeply manipulated video triggering their ultimate maternal fears. They believed they were exercising independent parental judgment while acting as the unconscious puppets of a deliberate algorithmic scam. The machine exploits our neurological weaknesses by relentlessly promoting extreme and polarizing perspectives. Simply to maximize profitable engagement, we are trained to interpret the astonishing number of likes on a malicious post as indisputable proof of its validity. We willingly outsource our moral calculus to a soulless code designed strictly to harvest human attention for financial gain. The algorithmic echo chamber is a prison where the inmate passionately demands to be locked inside. Chapter 6. Why ordinary people become tools of collective madness. How does a compassionate individual suddenly transform into a ruthless executioner when hidden behind a glowing screen? The concept of collective morality operates like a dangerous pendulum swinging between breathtaking heroism and unspeakable barbarity. A crowd capable of incredible selfless sacrifice is equally capable of committing the most atrocious acts of brutality. During historical massacres, ordinary blacksmiths and shoemakers butchered innocent prisoners without sensing a single drop of personal guilt. They were completely convinced by hypnotic slogans that they were performing a sacred patriotic duty to protect the nation. The furnace of the psychological crowd temporarily mutated their fundamental nature into something utterly unrecognizable. Today, the exact same psychological mutagen operates when users participate in a massive cyberbullying campaign. Because the victim is reduced to a flattened, two-dimensional avatar on a screen, empathy is entirely erased. The anonymous aggressor feels absolutely no remorse because the guilt is comfortably diluted among hundreds of thousands of other participants. The illusion of righteousness is the most intoxicating poison that a group can offer a desperate soul. When the slogan declares the target to be a vile traitor or a disgusting hypocrite, violence transforms into virtue. The ordinary person abandons their personal conscience and willingly becomes a mindless weapon for the hive mind. When we join an online mob demanding retribution, We rarely possess all the necessary and nuanced facts. We strike viciously in the dark, emboldened by the cheering voices of thousands of equally ignorant strangers assuring us of our superior morality. The desire to feel powerful and justified effortlessly overrides the quiet inner voice pleading for basic human decency. The most frightening atrocities are rarely committed by monsters. They are committed by ordinary people, driven by collective righteousness. Chapter 7. The Cost of Belonging. The invisible toll extracted for the warm comfort of belonging to the crowd is astronomically high. We pay for this temporary illusion of security by relentlessly sacrificing our most authentic values and core principles. We conform our lifestyles, our spending habits, and our very identity to satisfy the demands of the faceless many. Consider the tremendous financial debt accumulated by young individuals attempting to replicate wealth displayed on social media. They purchase extravagant luxury items using predatory loans simply to gain the fleeting approval of artificial peers. They willingly step into the choking chains of endless financial servitude merely to avoid the agony of social irrelevance. In every meaningful dimension of life, the collective narrative aggressively dictates our trajectory from birth until death. We follow pre-packaged educational paths, pursue socially validated careers, and cultivate artificial personas just to remain within the accepted boundaries. The terrifying result is a beautifully constructed life that belongs to everyone except the person actually living it. The masterpiece of the system is convincing you that complete surrender constitutes the highest form of true freedom. You believe you are making independent choices when purchasing standardized commodities engineered by faceless corporations. Yet your desires were carefully programmed by the relentless repetition of omnipresent advertising designed to exploit your deepest psychological insecurities. A student seeking academic success may accumulate unnecessary extracurricular burdens simply because a fearful parenting group demands it. The family sacrifices their genuine happiness and financial stability to follow an irrational and exhausting standard of expected perfection. They confuse the relentless pressure squeezing their souls with the righteous and inevitable path toward a better future. You purchase the illusion of acceptance with the irreplaceable currency of your own unique existence. Chapter 8. How to protect your mind in a crowd-driven world. If the gravitational pull of the herd is so immense, how can a frail individual survive this psychological siege? The first crucial step toward emancipation requires relentlessly recognizing the sophisticated manipulation tactics operating constantly around us. You must learn to observe the invisible architecture of influence without automatically becoming a helpless victim within it. Whenever you encounter a highly charismatic figure promising an absolute utopia or a foolproof solution, your alarms must ring. Real wisdom acknowledges life's overwhelming complexity, while deception sells the intoxicating illusion of an effortless guarantee. Analyze their actions meticulously and completely ignore the enchanting slogans promising effortless wealth, miraculous healing, or ultimate salvation. You must cultivate the rare ability to detect emotional bait designed exclusively to harvest your precious attention. If a headline deliberately ignites your boiling rage or incites sudden and uncontrollable terror, it is an algorithmic trap. Pause and meticulously interrogate whether this information offers objective reality or simply a monetized infusion of synthetic adrenaline. Refuse to surrender your precious cognitive autonomy to unverified claims masquerading as unquestionable collective truths. Challenge the concept that absolute consensus equals absolute accuracy by digging deeper into the hidden origins of popular trends. The independent mind relentlessly demands verifiable evidence, while the enslaved mind gladly accepts the comforting echo of a rehearsed chorus. Beware the crafted persona of the flawless hero, who conveniently shares your exact grievances and dreams. Charismatic deceivers fabricate impeccable digital facades to earn your immediate trust before leading you straight into disastrous ideological or financial traps. Never substitute meaningful due diligence for a warm sensation of familiarity generated by a carefully written script. True mental sovereignty begins the instant you consciously decide to stop believing the things you were programmed to believe. Chapter 9. The Discipline of Inner Distance. Awareness without action is merely paralyzing knowledge. You must actively build an impenetrable fortress to protect your inner citadel. The most formidable weapon against the insidious contagion of the crowd is the masterful implementation of a deliberate pause. In an era valuing instantaneous reaction, intentional slowness becomes the most radical form of intellectual rebellion. When an enraging social media controversy demands your immediate condemnation, force yourself into a strict 24-hour silence. During this sacred window of isolation, the overwhelming tidal wave of chemical emotion slowly recedes from your brain. You gain the crucial perspective required to see the hidden machinations manipulating the outraged digital multitude. You must systematically shatter the invisible walls of your comforting algorithmic echo chamber through intentional exposure to intellectual discomfort. Actively seek out and genuinely contemplate articles, videos, and deep philosophical perspectives that violently contradict your deepest, cherished beliefs. By forcing your mind to grapple with opposing realities, you develop a profound immunity to fanatical extremism. Embrace the tremendous power found in shedding the cowardly disguise of digital anonymity when expressing your opinions. When you attach your genuine identity and personal reputation to your words, you immediately restore the essential restraint of responsibility. The individual who must answer for their actions can never be completely consumed by the mindless anonymous mob. Dedicate one sacred hour every day to absolute solitude, disconnecting entirely from the endless screaming of the digital sphere. By sitting quietly with your own untangled thoughts, you fortify the fading boundaries of your original personality. Writing a private diary forces you to articulate what you truly believe versus what the world expects you to recite. Silence amidst the deafening noise is not a surrender. It is the ultimate declaration of complete intellectual independence. Chapter 10. What it means to remain human among the many. The true battleground of the 21st century is not found in disputed geopolitical territories or finite natural resources. The ultimate war is waged entirely within the sacred architecture of human consciousness and the silent depths of the soul. The machine endlessly demands that you dissolve your precious identity into the warm, unthinking embrace of the infinite group, remaining a truly independent being in a world designed exclusively to mass-produce obedient replicas requires tremendous psychological fortitude. It means willingly enduring the frigid winds of social isolation rather than seeking the suffocating warmth of a comfortable delusion. It requires finding profound peace in the knowledge that you speak your own truth, however unpopular. We must inhabit this complex and beautiful society without willingly handing over the master keys to our own minds. You can participate deeply in cultural movements, support noble causes, and build beautiful communities without ever surrendering your precious sovereignty. The truly empowered individual walks alongside the crowd while remaining intensely aware of every step they personally take. Civilization advances not through the mindless roar of a hypnotized herd, but through the quiet realizations of solitary thinkers. True progress demands those rare and courageous souls who look the dominant collective illusion in the eye and whisper, "No, do not betray your rationality just to survive the overwhelming pressure of an irrational and frantic modern world." To be human is to carry the intolerable weight of knowing that you must ultimately stand fast while others flee. You are not required to run from the gathering of your fellow citizens, but you are required to keep your eyes open. You must protect the faint spark of rationality that separate the noble consciousness from the blind and raging storm. To exist as a complete human being requires the unwavering courage to become a solitary exception within the endless rule. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my philosophy channel if you wish to continue exploring the hidden truths of our existence. As you return to the deafening chaos of your daily responsibilities, observe the tides of humanity flowing unconsciously around you. Notice the shared rhythms, the manufactured outrages, and the synchronized slogans that guide their every predictable step. And as you feel that magnetic urge to join the deafening chorus, pause and ask yourself, when the crowd begins to speak through you, how will you know your voice is still your own?